At 05:47 local time on the Pokrovsk axis in eastern Ukraine, a Russian rifle company rolls toward a Ukrainian trench line. 30 dismounts, 2 BMPs, a textbook assault on what their commander briefed as a lightly held platoon position. Unknown to him, the defenders in those firing pits had been watching his approach on thermal since he'd crossed the start line, and not one of them had a pulse. 2 BMPs stop at 600 meters. 30 dismounts pour out of the MTLBs behind them, AKs at the low ready, bounding forward in rushes toward the tree line. Fog covers them to about 250 meters, but it doesn't matter, because the thermal optic in the firing pit can see through fog, and the thing looking through it has never been scared. The lead Russian squad makes it 250 meters before the first tracer arrives. 4 rounds of 50 caliber in half a second, like someone running a jackhammer sideways across the skirmish line at waist height. Dirt geysers up the length of the Russian front. The squad is prone in 3 seconds. No muzzle smoke, no silhouette, just tracers coming out of a firing pit in the tree line with nothing moving around it. Second squad tries to bound forward and catches the next burst mid-rush. Same pit, same cadence, forces them down. They hit the dirt and dump magazines at a muzzle flash nobody can actually see. Third burst. The platoon sergeant rises to a knee to wave the trail squad forward and watches tracers snap past his shoulder before his arm finishes the signal. Whatever's in that pit pivoted onto him the instant he moved. He hits the dirt so fast his rifle bounces off his plate carrier. 25 seconds into contact, the Russian company commander is looking at his tactical display and processing a sentence nobody in his army has ever said out loud before. Whatever's shooting at us is reading movement faster than a human can. It's the battlefield equivalent of your wife noticing you gained 2 pounds before you even close the fridge door. Half a mile behind that firing pit, roughly 9 football fields, in a reinforced bunker cut 30 feet into the Donetsk clay, a Ukrainian operator named Kovalenko sips cold coffee, rolls his shoulders, and walks his crosshairs onto the next Russian who moves. Hornet 1 has been fighting the fight for 25 seconds, and he hasn't even taken cover yet. That's because the machine gunner is unlike any other gunner in the Ukrainian army. He isn't human. The firing pit those tracers are coming from holds a Droid TW-12.7, track chassis the size of a riding lawnmower, 1.1 tons, stabilized turret mounting a Browning M2 heavy machine gun chambered in 50 caliber. American design from 1933, still the meanest 50 cal on any battlefield, now bolted to a Ukrainian robot they build faster than Russia can take them out. Ballistic computer solves lead, drift, drop, and range faster than a human gunner can blink. Imagine autocorrect, but instead of fixing your spelling, it's adjusting bullet trajectory 400 times a second. Thermal optic pushes through fog, and AI flags targets the instant a pixel moves. It's a pillbox that doesn't flinch, doesn't need a bathroom break, and, most relevantly for the 30 guys face down in the mud, doesn't have a head to shoot at. Kovalenko is one of 6 operators running joysticks in that bunker. Hornet 1 is one of 4. Hornet 2, Hornet 3, and Hornet 4 are already staged in firing pits along a 400-meter frontage. 12 soldiers of the security element are running perimeter and prepping the rearm rig. Nobody is forward of the wire. The nearest Ukrainian infantryman is another half-mile back. Between Kovalenko's joystick and the Russian who just wet his pants is a 10-kilometer stretch of the Pokrovsk front that Ukraine has quietly converted into the first fully robotic sector in modern warfare. The Russians don't know this yet. 200 meters north, Hornet 2 opens up on the Russian right flank. Same robot, same cadence. The Russian platoon is taking fire from 2 angles with no way to close either without crossing open ground under 2 heavy machine guns. Bound and cover. One team shoots while the other runs forward. Only works if the other guy needs to duck when you shoot back. The Russian commander sees his platoon eating dirt on his display and orders the lead BMP's gunner to put the autocannon on Hornet 1's pit. At 600 meters, a 30mm autocannon outranges a 50 cal by more than 1,000 meters. The BMP lights up Hornet 1's thermal bloom. The 2A42 autocannon starts walking bursts across the tree line at 10 rounds per second. Hornet 1's turret rotates into cover. Kovalenko has 4 seconds before the gunner finds the range. He doesn't need 4 seconds. He needs Spike 1. A small-wheeled robot breaks from a hedgerow 300 meters east. Silent electric motor, 4 rubber tires, a bulging payload strapped to the chassis that looks like a car battery duct taped to a shopping cart. Spike 1 crosses 280 meters of broken ground in 56 seconds. The BMP gunner, still walking autocannon burst into Hornet 1's hedgerow, never sees the shopping cart rolling up at 6 o'clock. Detonation. The back half of the BMP punches into the next field. The vehicle coasts 8 meters on momentum and stops. Hatches pop. Crew tumbles out into the furrow and low crawls for the tree line. What just rolled up on them? The Ratel-S. Ukrainian for honey badger. 60 kilos, 24 kilometers an hour, 16 grand apiece. The pizza delivery driver of the apocalypse. Except the pizza was 14 kilograms of TNT, and it just rang the doorbell with the back half of a Russian armored vehicle. $16,000 in wheels and explosive versus a BMP-2 that rolled off the line at more than $1.5 million. The Russian commander orders the second BMP forward. Push to a new firing position. Finish what the first one started. BMP number 2 rolls through the smoke trail of its burning sister ship at 25 kilometers per hour. A fiber-optic FPV screams off a tree-lined launch rail at 400 meters back and threads the smoke at 120 kilometers per hour. The shaped charge collapses into a molten copper spear moving at 9 kilometers per second, Mach 25 at sea level, and punches clean through the BMP's turret ring. What just hit it? A WASP. Every fiber-optic FPV on this sector flies under that call sign. WASP 1, WASP 2. However many the launch team has loaded on the rails. $1,200 apiece. A hair-thin glass cable unspooled behind it like a kite string, carrying video and stick inputs as pulses of light at 200,000 kilometers per second. No radio. Nothing for the Shapovnik aerojammer on the Russian line to jam. Trying to jam a fiber-optic FPV with radio jamming is like trying to stop someone's flashlight by shouting at it. The signal isn't in the air, it's in the glass. 2 BMPs off the board in 4 minutes. Cost to Russia, roughly $3 million going up in black smoke. Cost to Ukraine, a robot that's still alive and a drone that isn't. Roughly 17 grand. On a farm track a click and a half west, 14 Russian motorcycles sprint down a lane between 2 hedgerows, 2 riders each at 60 kilometers per hour. The flank maneuver the Russian commander's been holding back hit the Ukrainian position from an angle the robots can't cover. The lane narrows between hedgerows for 120 meters. The Russian Orlan 10 reconnaissance has had imagery of this track for 3 weeks. What the imagery doesn't show is a disturbed patch of dirt exactly where the lane pinches, because it wasn't disturbed yesterday. Something rolled into position at 0330 this morning. Spike 2's payload, a Mon 90 directional mine, detonates 30 meters in front of the lead bikes, fanning 2,000 steel fragments across the dirt road in a 60-degree arc. The lead bikes lay down hard, tires screaming, riders going over the bars into the grass. The second rank wheels around and books it back the way they came. The rest ditch their bikes in the hedgerow and start crawling forward on their bellies, because somewhere behind that tree line is a Ukrainian trench line their commander still expects them to flank. 20 meters into that crawl, a Hornet in the east flank pit picks up thermal signatures moving through the hedge gap and walks 50 cal bursts through the brush a foot above their helmets. The crawl stops, pressed flat, nobody moving. That flank is done. The Russian commander is down both BMPs, his dismounted infantry pinned across 450 meters of open field, and his flanking elements stalled in a hedgerow. What he has left is his cornet team, a fiber-optic FPV section at the battalion rear, and a single Lancet loitering munition his battalion commander released to his control 8 minutes ago. He makes the call that Russian doctrine doesn't train for, but the situation demands. The cornet team sets up in a furrow at 600 meters. 6-foot launcher on a tripod, 60-pound missile, tandem warhead built to chew the reactive armor off a main battle tank. A cornet hits a droid. There's no droid. Full stop. Overhead at 1,300 feet, Owl 1. A $5,000 DJI Mavic 3T the Ukrainian army buys off the same catalog that sells them to wedding photographers, catches the launch flash in thermal. Hornet 1's operator hits smoke and reverses behind a hedgerow in one motion. The missile plows into the empty hedgerow at just under the speed of sound and detonates in a geyser of dirt and roots. The Cornet rides in on a laser beam painted on the target. Keep the dot on the hull, the missile rides the reflection home. Hornet 1 just stepped out of the dot. The missile chased the last bit of reflection into empty trees. 2.5 seconds, start to finish. But the Russian commander is watching his feed and he sees the reverse. He sees Hornet 1 pivot on its tracks, and he sees, for 1/4 second as the robot rotates, the flat glass face of its thermal optic housing. Glass. He keys his drone team. 2 Russian fiber-optic FPVs lift off from the battalion rear, not aimed at the chassis, not aimed at the turret, aimed at the sensor clusters. The first threads through a gap in the tree line and slams Hornet 1 at the base of the turret. Shape charge detonating against the optic housing. Scorched germanium. Hornet 1's primary thermal goes black. Kovalenko switches to backup optic. Narrow field, daylight only, blind past 400 meters. The second Russian fiber optic goes for Hornet 3. Same shot, same result. 2 robots fighting half blind. Then the Lancet, a pencil-thin plume, screams up from the Russian battalion rear. 55 seconds flight time. The Lancet is a loitering munition, disposable camera drone with a 3-kilo shaped charge warhead, cruising at 70 miles an hour, looking for a heat signature its operator can lock onto with a click. The operator's already clicked. The signature is Hornet 1. Owl 1 catches the climb 6 seconds in. WASP 2 claws on to intercept and buries itself in the Lancet's nose at 300 meters altitude. Both drones vanish in a dirty yellow flash. The Russian commander looks at his tactical display. Both BMPs scrap. Motorcycle flank stalled. Cornet team took an FPV through the launcher and pulled back on foot without their tube. FPV inventory, 0. Lancet inventory, 0. 30 dismounts face down in the mud, 450 meters short of a tree line, still putting 50 cal on them from 2 positions. He cracked the code. Target the sensors. It would have worked if he'd had 30 more minutes and twice as many drones. He doesn't. He gives the only order left: withdrawal. Which would be the end of the engagement, except half a mile back in a reinforced bunker, 6 operators are looking at each other across monitors, still showing green status bars on every robot in the fight. And none of them want to stop. Kovalenko keys the command channel. All platforms push up. The ground drones push through the pre-cleared lanes in the Ukrainian minefield in bounding formation, rolling northeast across 600 meters of cratered no man's land, through 2 drainage ditches and a collapsed farm road, toward the Russian forward trench line. 400 meters into the advance, the first Russian artillery salvo arrives. Not on the bunker, on the advancing robots. 4 152mm rounds from the 2S-3 Akatsiya battery, a Soviet-era self-propelled howitzer, basically a tank chassis with a 6-inch cannon bolted to the top, firing from 22 kilometers east. The Russian battalion commander, watching his rifle company withdraw on his own display, figured out what the Ukrainians were doing about 90 seconds before they started doing it. He's been walking shells onto the Ukrainian formation since the pursuit order went out. First salvo straddles Hornet 3, fragments against armor. Sensor housing goes. Hornet 3 is down to 1 working camera. Second salvo 30 meters short of Hornet 2. It loses a track segment, speed down to 4 kilometers an hour. It keeps shooting. The robots are in the open now. No firing pits, no overhead concealment. Thermal signatures visible to anything in the sky. The math that made the defense safe just inverted. The formation reaches the Russian forward trench line at 0618, 31 minutes into the fight. Here's the problem with taking a trench. A trench is anti-robot terrain. It's narrow and it's deep, and the turret on a droid can't depress into the bottom of it. A PKM team, that's a Russian belt-fed machine gun, their workhorse equivalent of our M240, lying in the trench at 8 meters below the lip, is a team that can blind Hornet 2 with 1 well-placed burst through a sensor housing. And somewhere in the next 400 meters of trench line are at least 4 Russian positions the original assault left behind when it withdrew. Because Russian doctrine, even when it breaks, doesn't abandon dug-in fire support. You don't clear a trench with a Hornet, you clear a trench with a breacher. Same principle as sending your kid into the room first to check if your wife is still mad. Except the kid is 60 kilos of TNT, and the room doesn't survive the reconnaissance. Spike 3 rolls out of formation and down a communication trench at 6 kilometers an hour. Silent electric motor, 21 kilograms of TNT on the cargo rack. A PKM team in the first bend of the trench hears the motor, rises to engage, and watches a small wheeled object round the corner at exactly the height of the trench lip with what looks like a stack of anti-tank mines bungee corded to the top of it. The PKM gunner gets off a burst. Rounds bounce off Spike 3's armored shell and spark against the trench wall. The gunner looks at his loader. The loader is already running. The gunner drops the PKM and follows. They clear 20 meters of trench at a sprint and pile around the next traverse. Spike 3 detonates 4 meters from the abandoned position. 2 spikes left. Hornet 1 rolls up to the collapsed trench section and uses the crater as its own firing position. 700 meters of Russian trench line are visible down the length of the cut. The Browning opens up. 3 Russian fire positions in the first 100 meters stop returning fire in the next 12 seconds. 1 because a sandbag parapet collapses under sustained 50 cal fire and the team pulls back. 1 because the position lost its overhead cover and the team buttons up and stops shooting. 1 because the gunner decides there's a better option than whatever comes next. He's not wrong. At 0624, the rally point takes a direct hit. The 2S3 battery, working systematically, has been walking rounds across a 200-meter arc behind the advancing formation since the pursuit order. At 0624, the bracketing pays off. A 152-millimeter round lands within 12 meters of the rally point. 4 soldiers from the bunker's security point are at that rally point running the rearm rig, swapping a belt on Hornet 4 that cycled back 5 minutes ago. The blast wave throws all 4 into the drainage ditch behind the berm. Fragments shred the rearm rig. Feed chute, scrap. Belt boxes, vented. The crew is in the ditch and moving. The rig that was supposed to feed 4 robots for the next hour is done. The next round hits Mule. Mule 1 was halfway through its second run from the bunker to the rally point with a full load of belts and a charged battery pack. Direct hit. The logistics loop that sustained the advance stops sustaining the advance. Hornet 1 is at 17% battery. Hornet 2 is at 9%. Hornet 3 got its belt swap before the round landed. Hornet 4 didn't. 4 robots. 1 full belt between them. Kovalenko is staring at a board where every green bar just turned yellow or red, and the QRF his owl just picked up at the approach lane is 12 minutes out. The pursuit didn't fail. The pursuit worked faster than the logistics tail could follow. Same problem every army has had since the wheel was invented. Your sword arm moves faster than your grocery run. Turns out robots have the same weakness as the Grand Army, the supply truck. This is the part of the fight where most commanders would consolidate and withdraw. Kovalenko orders the last spike forward. Spike 4 rolls down the remaining section of trench at 6 kilometers an hour. The Russian company's rear command dugout is 180 meters east along the trench line. Reinforced concrete, rated for artillery fragments and small arms, not rated for 21 kilograms of TNT detonating at the firing slit. It's been the forward observer team's perch and the radio relay to the incoming QRF for the last hour. The FO team is still inside, working the net. Spike 4 threads the communication trench and parks at the firing slit. The radio operator sees it through his aperture and understands exactly what it is. He keys one last transmission. Position compromised, bug out. Drops the handset and yells at the FO team. They're already moving. All 3 clear the rear exit trench at a full sprint and don't stop running. At 0633, the QRF, 2 BTR-82As with mounted infantry, roughly 24 men total, rolls down the approach lane at 40 kilometers per hour. A pair of WASPs working the lane punches the lead BTR through the engine deck and buries itself in the trail BTR's driver periscope. Both vehicles coast to a stop, smoking from the hatches. Crews and dismounts bail into the roadside ditch and low crawl into the hedgerow. They close the last 400 meters on foot. They arrive at the Russian forward trench line at 0637 and discover that the trench line is held by machines. Hornet 2 at 6% battery sits at the Russian company's commander's old firing position, using Russian overhead cover as its own, Browning tracking the QRF's approach lane. The QRF commander orders a push. 8 men go over the top of the approach berm. Hornet 2 and Hornet 4 open up from the interlocking positions, 50 cal bursts walking across the berm at waist height. The 8 hit the dirt before they've cleared the lip. nobody moves. The QRF commander does the math the first Russian commander did an hour ago. He does it in 90 seconds because he's been listening to that commander's radio traffic for the entire drive in, and he already knows what happens to companies that push this trench. His armor is smoking at the approach lane. His artillery support just lifted fire because Ukrainian infantry from the half-mile deep line is now inside the 2S3 safety arc and closing. His radio to the forward command dugout has been down for 4 minutes. He keys his battalion net and asks for reinforcement. The next QRF is 40 minutes out. He doesn't have 40 minutes. He has however many seconds Hornet 2 needs to traverse into his position, and Hornet 2 is still shooting. He looks at his remaining men. 24 soldiers pinned in a ditch 300 meters short of a trench line held by things that don't get tired, don't get scared, and don't care how many friends you brought. He gives the only order left. His radio operator rips the side off an ammunition crate and writes on it with a grease pencil and holds it up where Owl 1 orbiting at 400 feet can read it through a thermal lens. Мы сдаемся. We surrender. If you enjoyed this video, then watch this other video on the war in Ukraine. Bye for now.